Have you checked out what Microgains has recently? I fell in love with Microgains because of their barbell fractional plates. I was blown away by their dumbbell fractional plates. But Mike has been at it again, improving his products and designing new products. The Microgains fractional plates you know and love now come in assorted colors, so each weight is a different color. If you carry the plates around in your gym bag, you know exactly which plate you're grabbing for quick loading. He's redesigned the dumbbell fractional plates as well, so they no longer involve rubber bands, but instead use a spring. No replacement rubber bands needed. And here's a few things they've added since they last advertised. Fractional plates for 1-inch barbells, kilogram fractional plates, 5-pound plates, 10-pound plates, plates with the Barbell Logic logo etched on them, deadlift jacks, loadable 2-inch dumbbell handles, and even a special decal fractional plate, either as a donut or as an American flag themed. And if you love Microgains as much as me, get some swag. They have hoodies, tank tops, shirts, and even Christmas ornaments. Go to microgains.com and check out their shop. That's microgains, GAINZ.com. As always, use discount code LOGIC to get 10% off. If you haven't checked out what Microgains has for sale, you're missing out. Hey, Barbell Logic listeners. What you're about to hear is one of a few episodes I recorded with my original co-host, Scott Hambrick. His life and lifting have changed a lot since you last heard him on the podcast. And in these episodes, we discussed what's changed and just catch up. And we also talk about lifting. Now, an important reminder that these podcasts are for entertainment purposes only. Scott's opinions are not necessarily the opinions of Barbell Logic or myself, but it makes for some pretty damn entertaining conversations. So Scott and I touch on cultural and political stuff that we don't normally touch on in the podcast. So if you don't want to hear that stuff, it's totally fine. We'll return to our normal podcast for barbell enthusiasts and coaches in just a couple weeks. If you've missed Scott on the podcast, I'm happy to bring this to you. I'm really proud of the podcast we recorded together, and I'm excited to have him back on the podcast for a few episodes. You can always listen to some of the older podcasts with Scott that are out in individual episodes or re-released in the series. And if you want to just hear Scott, you can check out one of his podcasts, the Online Great Books podcast, the Music and Ideas podcast, and his new one, the Growing Resilience podcast, links for which you can find in the show notes. I hope you all enjoy the shows. You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm Matt Reynolds here again with Scott Hambrick, my old podcast partner here on Hambrick Farm. Did a little catch up last episode on your life and what you're doing. And, I think one of the best things that ever came out of this podcast was our discussions and verbal processing about minimum effective dose programming. I mean, this was really a thing that we talked through and developed on the podcast, even often live. Like, we had some discussions, off the show or, not being recorded. But a lot of that stuff that we just learned during the conversations that we had. You've continued to coach for Barbell Logic all these years, even being out here on the farm. How's that going, by the way? Is your internet okay out here?
Yeah, it is. I got some Redneck Mafia stuff.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, it works great.
I'm waiting for the for Elon Starlink to come in my land. Mine is not okay. I got satellite internet. It's ridiculously expensive, and it's like 2 megabyte download per second and 0.1 up. I can't online coach not the land. It's one.
Yeah, mine's pretty good.
One pain in the butt. So we've been utilizing minimum effective dose programming for years now, and just applying it to more and more and more people. And we wanted to talk a little bit today about really MED for boomers.
Yeah.
MED when it has to go the wrong way, right? Minimum effective dose when you have to start taking weight off the bar, you have to start reducing stress, or even for somebody like you who's gone from living the suburban office life to working a full-time job out on a farm, and you just can't recover from it. Yeah. Again, we've talked about the total amount of stress. You have to take into account the total amount of stress that's on the body, not just the stress, the productive stress that's in the weight room.
Yep.
And for you, you're carrying chainsaws and you're turning, what's your fork?
Broad fork.
You're turning your broad fork, and you're essentially like a Highland Games competitor, but for real at this point. At this point, tossing hay and whatnot. And so you've got to account for that for people as well who are our favorite generation alive, the boomers. They are slowly having to take weight off the bar as well. I'm dealing with this with Sybil. Sybil is 87 now. And she's probably, hopefully she won't listen to this because I still, want her to hope that she's got PRs in her, but she probably didn't have any more PRs in her. Her best deadlift PR is 155 for a set of 5. And, she's going to flirt with 100. And so she's had a 50% reduction, 33 to 50% reduction.
Can she even pull for 5s?
She can pull for 5s. I make her pull for 5s, but I let her tap and go. And a lot of that is because, and I don't let any of my other clients do that, but it's so hard for her to get down and grab the bar that I just I make her go real slow and not bounce, and she very lightly taps and stands back up. So really what she's doing is sort of an RDL that taps the floor on reps 2 through 5, and only her first one is actually a dead stop from the floor. So,
well, see, that's one of the things. You get older, you get real strong, you get older, you just can't even do 5s. Can't even do it.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. So the MED thing, if you haven't listened to the shows, we're talking about making programming changes one at a time, making the minimum change that is necessary to effectively get an improvement in performance.
Yeah, and specifically, we want to see the best return on investment for the smallest change possible. So, because some people would say, well, why not just, you could add a quarter of a pound all the time. And I would argue man, maybe at some point for maybe Sybil for her overhead press, a quarter of a pound is okay. But for most people, there is a point where that minimum effective dose could be so small that the ROI is not enough. We actually want a small minimum effective dose change, single variable change if we can. Occasionally that intensity and volume have to have a inverse relationship. But what we want is that smallest change we can make for the greatest return on investment. So,
yeah, it has to be effective. So, your quarter pound increase in a guy with a 225 squat, it's lost in the noise.
That's right.
But having done this now for almost 10 years, I've got a bunch of clients who I helped get very, very strong, who their PRs are behind them. Yep. You can't get them forever. Mine are behind me. Yours are behind you. And so we got to figure out what to do. And so, minimum effective dose. Well, what is the effect we're trying to have? Well, it's not get stronger now. And I'm telling you, it is very difficult. And I'm not going to claim to be as good at managing the decline as I am the improvement.
Sure.
The improvement is easy.
Sure.
So I have more and more clients that are very mature as lifters. They might not be that old, but they have been lifting for a long time, and they're very, very advanced, and they often have their PRs behind them. And then we talked about this just a little bit in the last show. The amount of stress that people are under is astronomically higher and worse than it was in 2019 or wherever it was when we recorded our last show together. I remember Charity and I had to put our old cat down one time. It was a training day. The old cat that we got right after we got married, he was almost 20 years old. It was time, So we went through that, and then we went home, and we're like, it's time to train. It was
awful, right?
Dude, we couldn't even sniff the numbers that were programmed for that day. We did our last warm up, and we're like, well, we'll do another set at this warm up weight, and that's it. Like the stress is debilitating,
for sure.
And everyone's stress is higher than it was.
That's right. Right.
So even if I don't have somebody who's very advanced, okay, let me ask you this. No, I'll say this, and you let me know if you agree. The overall performance of my portfolio of clients is lower than it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
Do you find that to be the case?
Yes.
I was talking to Carl Shute.
And we're talking about the same clients.
Yes.
I mean, most of my clients are the same clients.
Most of mine are the same.
Most of my clients are not currently hitting PRs.
Right.
I have a few that are. And the ones that I do are ones that hired me 5 months ago.
Well,
coming out of this, that we're in a very high stress place, and they're still getting some of those beginner gains.
They're still getting LP stuff.
Yeah.
Are you finding that LP is ending earlier? I am.
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe. Yeah.
I've talked to Carl a little bit about it, and the people are not as strong.
Sure.
I don't think they are. I'll tell you, people aren't going to like this. People that get vaccinated, dude, it wrecks them for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then they often get COVID again anyway.
Sure.
Like those folks, that is a struggling demographic for me.
Sure.
Anyway, so I find myself in this situation more and more and more, and it's very, very difficult. And minimum effective dose, the first thing that needs to happen is that the trainee needs to understand that the good times are really over for good.
Right.
That's the first thing. Because I have found that actually probably the first change, once they accept it, is that we can't be ramping up. You can make a run, a mature lifter who's in decline can make a PR run once a year.
Right.
Once every 18 months.
Yeah. Right.
Like when you're on the ramp up, you're going to get PRs every day in LP. Right. You're going to get them once a week later. Then you're going to get them every 10, 14, 12, 21 days, whatever.
You go 3-4 years a lot of times and just hit PRs every week, every couple of weeks forever.
Maybe hit them twice a year,
right.
Which is good. But you're working towards it. You're like, okay, I just had a PR day. I hit all my PRs. We're going to back off a little bit next week. The next block starts in 12 days.
Right.
Well,
doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
Right.
And so my boomer clients, they can't stand it.
Right.
They're like, hey, we need to have a meeting about my press. It's really struggling. We need to talk about this. I had a client do that the other day, and I love him. I'm trying to be generous with him, and he's like, we need to have a meeting about my press.
Right.
And I was like, dude, you are 67 years old.
He's entitled to a press PR, Scott. He's a boomer.
Like, you've been on Medicare. He's like, well, I'm really healthy. I was like, you've been on Medicare for 2 years. You're 67.
Yeah.
I looked it up, and I'm like, your life expectancy is you are 12 years
from death. Right.
And you want to have a meeting about your press? Like, okay, we're going to have a meeting about your press. Your press is over. No, I did. I was like, your press is over.
Sure.
Like, I want to keep you strong. I want to keep your shoulder mobile so you can wash the top of your head. Like, these are the goals.
So you can wash the top of your head.
No, you get them with frozen shoulders. They can't wash their head.
I can't put the collar. I can't fold my collar down.
I was like, your press
I got to put the shirt on top of my head.
He's going to get deadlift PRs. He's
still got some of those left.
Yeah. And often they will. But so for the first dose for me ends up finding out is me trying to figure out how much I can back them off.
Right.
And how frequently I can do that without them detraining. And that is really hard to do, man.
Especially when you've got I think the hardest clients to program for are very highly compliant clients who are older. Because for most people, and this one of the things that's changed, I was telling you, we had a phone call about this before doing these shows. Our audience has changed some over the years too, in that it's the same audience, I think a lot, but that audience that used to be beginner lifters, LP lifters, intermediate lifters, advanced are now coaches, becoming coaches, or have crossed over the hump, and they're at the point now where they're older and they might not hit PRs anymore. And so they've been listening to us for 6-7 years, and so they've hit this, now they're maybe on the way back down, or maybe they're more focused on helping others or coaching others or whatever the thing is. And so for most of my clients, and for those of you listening who coach, for most of your clients who are in that age demographic, again, joking kind of the boomer demographic, or even somebody like you who's taken on, a new place in life where you're doing manual labor all the time, or you're just super stressed from everything that's going on in the world. There's just a higher level of stress, and we're not able to just add 5 pounds every single workout anymore. Most of my people that are high stress, older, have these sort of things, will give me their own deloads. And we talked about this all the time. They get sick. They go on vacation. They visit. As a matter of fact, right now, Sybil is up in the Pacific Northwest visiting her grandkids. She was supposed to come train the other day, and she was like, I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you, I'm getting on an airplane. We're leaving a day early, and I'm going to, well, okay, then she's got her deload. So what she'll do is I don't have to think too much about taking weight off a little bit per session. When she comes back, she's just going to be,
start over.
She will have detrained. We'll start back over, and we'll start the LP over. The harder part is when you have the clients like you're talking about who are, they've done this for 4, 5, 6 years. It's as much a part of their life as putting on their shoes in the morning, as eating breakfast. They're going to train, and now they're like, I'm entitled to PRs. Scott, how can you not be getting me PRs anymore?
This guy, another one, he's like, my deadlift is really detrained. So his intensity day, I have been tapering the volume on intensity day so we could keep the weight on the bar and keep him trucking. Right. So he's supposed to pull a triple at 405.
How old is he?
65, 64. I mean, come on.
Plenty strong.
Plenty strong.
Yeah.
He's like, I was feeling good. I went ahead and went for it. He does 5. He's done for 2 weeks.
Right.
It ruined him.
Yep.
He's like, I felt good, so I went for it. He increased his volume 66%.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Now what are you going to do next session?
He's done.
Yeah.
The next,
Nothing.
I'm telling you, the next 6 weeks is wrecked. He can't recover. He's elderly. Oh my God.
Yep.
And so then he's like, hey, going on vacation. I'm like, hey, listen, don't worry about a thing. You and your wife have a great time playing in the surf with the kids.
Yeah.
And he's like, I did some sessions in the gym in Cozumel. I'm like, why would you? What are you doing? Like, how am I going to do this?
Right.
How am I going to do this?
Right. Again, we're talking about a 65-year-old guy.
Right.
Not a 37-year-old guy.
No.
My 37-year-old guys, they want to train on vacation. I'm all for it. Let's go get a couple sessions in.
Go get a pump, whatever.
Let's do it. That's
burn
fine.
some of the alcohol off you drink.
Right.
Sure.
Right. A guy that consistently trains, never misses, is pulling 405 for reps and 65, probably just needs to go on vacation when he goes on vacation.
He's cool. And in fact, that's the thing that actually needs to happen, right? That's the change that needs to happen.
Right.
We need a deload.
That's right.
Right now.
Yeah, this is a great point.
So I tell him,
have to start,
have a good vacation.
That's right. If you have to minimum effective dose, pull the weight off the barbell, somebody's probably screwed this up, because what actually works better is what Sybil's doing, or what the guy does if he goes on vacation. You come back, you drop him down, and you start working back up, and then you don't ever have to you don't have to get to that spot. It's the people who don't ever go on vacation or train so consistently that they never stop training even when they do go on vacation that it becomes very difficult to program for.
Very difficult.
And so it doesn't mean that it's fine.
Hey,
but
I also get it. Like I was moving heavy weights.
Sure.
Like press a 205 for a triple.
Sure.
Like there are people stronger. I don't care. That was big for me.
Sure.
Pull 500 with a stiff bar and shoes every now and then. Like it was good. So when I go in now and I'm going to press 135 for 4x5 and I'm just wrecked.
Right.
Like I'm like, there's no justice. Like what?
Right.
This is going to
be
miserable.
Sure.
When I used to do, I could do 8 sets of this,
Yeah,
or I could do it for 4 10s or whatever.
Right. Sure.
And so I get it. It's very frustrating. You're like, because it's just as hard as the heavy stuff you did 3 years ago, but it's not heavy.
That's right.
It's hard on the ego. I understand, but they need. The first thing is they actually need to take some time off.
That's right.
Like deloads, in my opinion, well, first of all, they don't recover. They don't really heal up like a young person does.
Right. It's not a deload the way a competitive powerlifter takes a deload and just reduces the intensity by a little bit and the volume by a lot. We're talking about don't do anything.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
we've
for
not
a
talked
65,
about this.
70-year-old,
They
go
need
on
to
vacation,
not do
nothing.
anything.
Yes. Now, walk around the neighborhood.
Fine.
Whatever,
man.
Be active. I'm fine with.
But pressing
don't
or
deadlifting?
Heavy
deadlifting. You're just like, well, I'm only going to do 2 sets instead of 4 sets of heavy deadlift. No.
And I don't mean 2 weeks. Like that'll set them way, way back. You're going to be a long weekend. Your 4th of July weekend, you're going to be in another town for 5 days.
Right.
Don't
5
lift.
days is great.
7 days, fine.
Right.
10 days,
Yeah. Now we got some detraining issues. Big time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, for those older people, they need to just have hiatuses, I don't know, whatever, every now and then.
And a lot do.
A lot of them do.
Right.
Will Wyatt.
Yep.
I'm gonna dox you, Will Wyatt. He's one of my clients. Beginning of the year, he's like, man, I want to hit this number by my birthday. He's like, can we do it? And I was like, listen, Boomer, I don't know if you can do it or not.
Right.
But if you're consistent and I'm careful with the programming, you will hit the biggest number that you can by your birthday.
Right.
Right. And I don't think that what you're asking for is out of the realm. But it doesn't matter. You've got to not miss a session, and I've got to be diligent. But let's go.
Yeah.
Radio silence for 3 weeks. You're right. So I don't ever have this problem with. Yeah.
Radio silence.
Well, he sold his house and he tore his gym down. Yeah. Well, no, he kind of disappeared. He does because that's how he does me.
Right. I get you.
But like he sold his house, he tore the gym up, moved, put it back.
Right.
Like, that's fine. I get it.
Those are some of my most frustrating clients. The clients who say. They're constantly sending me the goal. Coach, I want to do this. Coach, I want to do this. And then they have 62% compliance.
Right.
And I'm like, it doesn't matter what your goal is if you miss the workouts.
But I do know that with him, like, all we need is 21 sessions and there's a PR.
Right. Yeah.
So that's great. Now, for the younger guy who's advanced and he's not the 65-year-old who pulls 5 instead of 3 and then wrecks his beans, that guy doesn't need to just take off 8 days or 10 days.
No. He needs like an actual deload. Get in the gym, get some blood pump in, feel good.
Yeah.
Don't detrain, and then come back and go heavy again. We can do that.
And I often, maybe I don't really like doing deloads. Like, I think I've failed most of the time if I have to put them into a deload.
Yeah,
now,
sure.
if they're in a competition event, we need to give it their all, and then they need a deload, right? But I don't want to take everybody up to the line if they're not working on the competition,
I agree.
So sometimes we have to do it, and sometimes it makes sense. But that's one of the last things I want to do.
Yep.
I would rather have everything all dialed in so the fatigue never accumulates, but we're still getting numbers and the volume's going up, the tonnages are going up.
Much more to, you talk about that 5 day, taking a break for 5 days. I've moved a lot. So same thing. I'm going to program in a way that you never need a deload.
That's my goal.
Now,
I don't always hit it.
Well, and the problem is too, it's not only the programming that could be the problem, it's the rest of the life. And so far more often I get a client who, I've got their Monday and Tuesday workout scheduled. It's heavy, it's normal, it's going to be fine. But they had a rough weekend, kid was sick, they didn't get sleep, whatever. And they just get crushed on Monday and Tuesday. And I go, take Wednesday off. And then Thursday and Friday, I'm going to have you train. But Thursday and Friday are going to be deload days. And I'll take the little half-week deload. So I'll just, reduce their weight down by 10%, not very much. Reduce their volume down by 30%, something like that. Let them get in, get good lifts. And really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to not increase the fatigue on those 2 last workouts of the week. And I'm also trying to mentally, psychologically encourage them. I want them to go in and not feel like, oh, holy shit, this feels so heavy. I want them to go in and be like, this feels pretty good, I'm okay, and then get another good weekend, and then you come in on Monday and things are fine, you come back in. So I'll utilize that a lot with people.
I will argue with me about this. I will sometimes tell that this younger, I think we're talking about a younger person, right? This is not the older person.
Right.
I will often tell them, don't train Wednesday.
Right.
I don't even deload. I'm saying, don't
take one day off.
Just don't train Wednesday.
Right. Yeah.
Let's say the Monday workout, I watch it, it's garbage. Everything's slow, like their face is green.
Yeah.
So I'll just tell them, no training Wednesday. And then I just move Monday over. I just have them do it again.
That's right. Sure.
Do you think, I know it works because I've done it. Then they'll come in there, they do that, they'll re-attempt that workout. I know it works.
Sure.
Do you think that that's not as good for their mindset to have them take a day off?
And then do the exact same workout and then crush the exact same workout? It's great for their mind.
You think so? Well,
because think about it. They go in and they do this workout and they're like, holy shit, I should be able to do this. And I couldn't, and it crushed me. And you're like, hey, what we're going to do is take an extra day of rest. And then I'm going to give you that same workout again. And then they go in and they're like, oh my God. And then they kill it. That's of course encouraging for them. Because they're like, wow, just 4 days ago, I tried this same workout and it killed me, and now I'm fine. So, I think it's a great move to make.
Well, I think it's encouraging, but I'm worried that I'm encouraging them to take a day off.
Oh, no, I think it's fine. And I think, it's the key is I just don't want them doing that on their own. Right. And I think that's part of the deal of having a professional coach. It's like, don't go for the PR if I didn't schedule the PR. Don't take the day off. I didn't tell you to take the day off. Don't move the workout up a day if I didn't. Even for me, again, we have so much flexibility in what we do at Block where it's like, if I need to move your workout up a day, I'll move it up a day and I'll back off because you can't go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You get this sometimes, right? Where your client's like, well, I'm traveling for business on Friday, so I got to get all 4 workouts in Monday through Thursday. Now, if they're young, I'll let them do it, but I'm still not going to do this. Yeah. I'm not going to do the same amount of stress on Wednesday and Thursday that I would have done on Thursday and Friday. For an older person, I'm going to take one of those days out. Usually, if they're on a 4-day split, I'm going to do 2 upper days and 1 lower day instead of 2 lower days that week. And I'll just say, well, let's just, instead of going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, let's go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and go upper, lower, upper. And then take your long vacation week or your long weekend and come back on Monday and you're fine, right? So there's lots of ways to skin this cat. Again, I think that
none of them are good. You know what I mean?
None of them are optimal, but I still think the hardest one as a coach is when you have the person who's done 150 straight workouts, never missed a workout, and they're not going to hit another PR.
Yeah.
Like they're done with PRs. Then how do you approach it as a coach? You're like, hey, I've got to take weight off the bar. So how do you approach that? Like even at a 30,000 foot view first.
Carl, I've from time to time I talk to Carl about my training, and he's like, dude, the glory. And I'm like, listen,
Right, it's virtue and glory for him.
Right. I'm like,
you're in survival mode.
Right. I can't do it.
Right.
And he's like, well, you need to squat less. Like I'm squatting once a week.
He thinks you squat less often?
Yeah. I mean,
Less
at that
than once
time
a
I
week?
was squatting. No, at that time I was squatting twice or three times,
Okay. Right.
He's like, you need to squat less. So, we've been talking about the older person maybe needs to take 7 whole days off.
Sure.
Now, if we're to the point where they need to take 7 whole days off, they've had a pretty successful run up.
Sure.
The younger person, we're like, take off Wednesday, or Reynolds is going to program you 2 light days, and then we get back on it Monday.
Yeah.
Well, they've had a successful run up. So if we had a successful run up, you need a break.
Yeah.
And it's kind of different than a deload, what we're talking about.
Sure.
So there's that. That's one change. And then the other one is I start looking for ways to pull volume away. No, pull slots away.
Yeah.
Like I still want them, if I can get a guy in his 30s that's pretty strong, and I can still have him squat 4x5 or 5x5 and get some good volume, then I don't want to pull him back to 3x5 or 4x5. Like
Right.
I don't want to pull a full set away. I would rather pull a slot away.
Sure.
Because like if he does the work, I want him to have if it's time to put the bar on your back, I want him to have the work capacity to get it done
Correct.
that day.
Right.
So if I've got him squatting
That's
3
the one
times
good,
a
hard,
day,
stressful session, rather than taking that and trying to divide it up 2 moderately stressful sessions.
yes.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree.
I actually do this more. Well, that's not true. It's easier to see it in the press and the bench press because we'll often, by the time a guy's pretty advanced, man, they're doing a lot of pressing stuff.
For sure.
They can press 4 times a week.
Slots and often sometimes 30 work reps. Like you might have 6 sets of 5. That's my top end for and I've probably said this before.
What? I never do that.
That's the highest I would ever get them. 5 sets, 6 sets. Like I never go higher than 30
I
press
guess if
reps.
I had a college age guy, I'll have them do 4x5s, 5x5s.
So 25.
And then do something else.
Yep.
And then do a variant for like 3 threes.
Sure.
Pause bench.
Same thing.
Press starts for 2 threes.
Sure.
3 singles. But anyway, rather than making a particular slot less stressful, I'll try to drop a slot if I can.
Sure.
That's the next thing I'll be looking to do.
Reduce frequency.
And then the boomer's like, ring.
Right.
Boy, my volume's really dropping
Why
here,
did you take my, yeah.
Like, you're elderly. You're 71. you went to your grandkid's 8th birthday party.
Right.
And you didn't have kids till you're 31.
I think you pointed out there earlier was that there is a minimum effective dose progression that should occur even in the breaks, right? So we talk about minimum effective dose variables to increase stress, and we've started to kind of tease out that at some point you'll have to decrease. But I think you talk about like for the 30-year-old, like that's a 1-day rest, and then for the 35-year-old, it's a 2-day rest. And for the 45-year-old, it's a 4-day, it's a take a long weekend. But for the 65-year-old, it's a week.
Yeah.
Take a week off. So there's actually that minimum, again, and those ages are, of course, arbitrary. It depends on what your recovery ability is.
There's a
and what
gradient
that's
there.
Yeah. So, but you're exactly right. And like how much you have to deload, like those sort of things change. And some of that depends too on both the ability of the older person to recover, but it also often depends on if the person is younger and brutally strong, right? So I have to take a bigger deload. Somebody who's squatting 500 for reps, a deload can't be 455.
No.
It's too much. It's got to be 375, right? It's like,
yeah.
I mean, think about 375 as a deload. Like that's still a really stressful event. And so the percentage you often have to deload people who are very neurally efficient and super strong, you've got to deload them a lot. And you also have to deload old people a lot. So both ends of those spectrum, right end and left end.
Oh, God. Yes. Old people are old, not necessarily because of the number of years they've been around.
Correct.
But their physical abilities have declined.
Sure.
And they just can't recover. They can't eat enough food without getting fat.
Right.
They don't sleep very well.
Right.
I don't sleep very well, and
yeah.
And when you deload them, they detrain.
Right.
I mean, the instant they put the bar back in the rack and they're sitting on the bench huffing and puffing, they're
Right.
starting to
Right.
detrain.
They're starting to get weaker.
And there's nothing we can do about it.
Well,
right. So my client's like, hey, I've noticed, that you've really cut my deadlift volume back, and I'm not even sniffing the old numbers I was at. I'm like, yeah, you really can't. I wish you could, but you can't.
Right. So I was going to say, I think for me, there's a foundational goal problem here, right? So the goal has to,
expectations.
That's right. The goals and expectations have to change. And I think that's one of our roles as a coach. And often that's a difficult, they're hard conversations or awkward conversations that you have to have. But I think if you can approach it the right way, people, like for me, I fought back in the old, when we were recording our kind of the end, I think, March, April, May of 2020, I was still like, I think maybe I'll deadlift 800 pounds one day. You're like, you're not,
You're not.
And now I've accepted I'm never going to hit another 1 rep max PR ever again. But there are still PRs that I can hit. They're just different PRs, right? There are certain PR, like I can hit a body fat percentage PR. I can hit a low body weight PR as I get older. I can hit consistency PRs. I can hit
literally fat chance.
Well, but
I got to go with the joke.
You know what
comment.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying.
Changing the goals is important.
It's important. For me, it's about like, I need to get in and do something most days a week right now, and it's not super stressful. And I'm never going to deadlift 3 or 4 sets of 5 in a workout ever again for the rest of my life. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't have any desire to do that. I get my volume off of lighter accessory movements. I go in and hit 1 or 2 moderately heavy sets on the barbells, and then I get my accessory stuff in. I walk with my wife. I watch my heart rate. I track my sleep. I actually track that in the metrics on our software. Like every night I get up. How much sleep did I get? How much deep sleep did I get? What was my resting heart rate? How many alcohol drinks did I have the day before? Because that immediately affects my sleep. All of those sort of things, those start to become some of my goals. My goals just transition from I'm a professional powerlifter, professional strongman to I'm just trying to be as healthy as I can. It's longevity. And so I think for a lot of these people, if they would just transition more to longevity as the goal, we've preached for a long time, probably even at some point to a fault, it was that strength at all cost. It was here's how you get stronger no matter what. Listen, getting strong is awesome. Improving force production is awesome. We always at some point in our life need to walk. And even if you're 65 when you start, even if that's how old you are when you start, you do have PRs in you because you've got novice PRs. But at some point when you've walked through the fire of being strong, and you've gotten strong, and you're the 65-year-old guy who can deadlift 405 for reps. You're plenty strong. Life can't throw you anything that you're not strong enough for. It's time to start to think about, hey, I'm 65. Can I beat the numbers I hit when I was 40? No. Start thinking about the longevity pieces. What's my resting heart rate? What's my blood pressure? If I have enough sleep? Do I have a healthy body weight? Man, listen, being 255, 265 is not healthy when you're 65 years old. You talked about your 220. You came down from 245 to 225. You were saying you need to be 205 to work this job as a full-time farmer, right? Same thing for me. Like I'm trying to come down as hard as I can. It's crazy. I've been training my balls off for the last 2 months. I've been eating 2,700, 2,800 calories a day, enough to be able to. I should be losing weight. But because it's been so long since I've trained my balls off, I just keep putting, like, I'm still in that, I'm just have to be okay with putting on muscle right now.
Yeah.
And I can tell my body's starting to plateau on the putting on muscle, like the muscle memories started to come back. And I know the weight will start coming down. But, like, I can't walk around at 270. Like, it's not.
What do you weigh right now?
270.
Yeah, if I train, 6 hours later, my body weight's up. Like I hold water, I puff up.
Yeah.
If you're training 4 days a week,
hungry,
you're puffing up.
Your metabolism's through the roof. But at some point, it becomes like, I'm not lifting anymore for a 700-pound deadlift.
No. I loathe doing a show like this. Like you said, the audience has probably changed. I'm sure it has. If you're an office person and you haven't really done this very much, you need to chase numbers.
That's right. Absolutely.
All the way.
Yes. For the next several years.
Yes.
For sure.
All the way.
Even if you're 65, 70 years old.
And you need to drive your body weight up, probably, unless you're an obese person.
Yep.
But these people we're talking about have been doing this for a while. And they need to, like you say, pursue these other goals. But they need to have some dadgum humility, man.
Sure.
Like, get the ego out of it.
Right.
And just, I
The
used
ego's
to,
going to get you hurt.
I used to talk about this on the show, and people would get mad at me. Like 50 is not the new 30. You
Right.
know, 67 is not the new 40. No, it's
Right.
not. You're old.
Right.
Like, one of my good friends, I was talking to his mom one day, and she was in her mid 80s at that time. Dallas. It was Dallas's mom. And I'm like, so you're 87. What's that like? And she says, oh, it's all the same looking out.
Yeah.
So her experience was just, unless she was, had to get out of a chair and her hip hurt, like when we were just playing cards or whatever, it was all the same to her.
Yeah.
But it's not.
No. Right.
I mean, her mind was
Your
there, which is
perception
awesome.
Right. Perception is different than reality. That's the situation.
And I know for these boomer clients that I'm griping about, it's all the same looking out, but the cartilage in their elbow doesn't know that.
Correct. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
Right.
And they
The
don't
knees aren't the
metabolize
same. Their hips
protein
aren't
at the same
that's right.
rate.
That's
They
right.
don't do muscle protein synthesis, maybe any, maybe at all.
Right.
Like a 71-year-old guy. Come on, how much muscle protein can he lay down
This
in a
is
day?
why the 71-year-old guy needs more protein as a percentage of his total calories than the kid does.
Yeah.
Because the kid is just walking protein synthesis. Like he sniffs and he gets, ties his shoe and he gets protein synthesis. But the old guy doesn't. So he's got it. You've got to hammer it.
These chickens.
Yeah.
I'm raising Cornish rock cross chickens, which is a weird breed it's not a GMO thing. They were crossed, with standard, farm genetic manipulation. They had a rock have sex with a Cornish.
Right. I was going to say.
So now we got these Cornish rock crosses. They're white. They're albinos. They don't make many feathers. Like if you feed a bird feed and it turns it into feathers, you lose money. Nobody wants the feathers.
Feathers are protein. Feathers are amino acid building blocks.
Yeah, they are. They're keratin.
But you can't eat them.
Right. They
It's
sell
like
them
fingernails.
they sell them for fertilizer, but
Right.
that's not the goal, right? You want them to make
We want meat.
Meat.
Right. Muscle.
Before we started this, we went and looked at the older batch, the more mature batch we have here. They are 5 weeks old. They weigh, I don't know, probably something like 3.5 pounds apiece. They are eating roughly half. They're eating roughly half a pound of food a day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy, and they're gaining roughly a pound a week.
Right.
Unbelievable.
That's
and then
crazy.
we'll butcher them, and there is zero visible fat.
Right.
When you get the fat, like the yellow globs around the.
None of that.
None.
No.
Zero.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, man. They're like geared up Bulgarian powerlifters.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
They're great eating. I mean, that's what's crazy is a lot of times animals that are very lean and high muscle tend to not be very good eating, right? Like the meat's tough on them. A lot of that's not the case with this at all, man. Your chickens are the best chickens I think I've ever had.
Yeah, they butchered 8 weeks. They're not stringy and
right. Maybe that's
like
what it
my
is.
65-year-old clients.
Yeah,
So
the old
stringy.
That's right. You ever had an old like dairy cow as a steak?
You got to make burgers.
They're if you do it right, it can be okay. I think it needs a lot of dry. I think they got to dry age them a long time to kind of like. But it's really interesting flavor. It is flavorful.
That's what we could say. It's flavorful.
My wife wouldn't like the flavor, but
tastes like dog food, like liver. It's flavorful.
Speaking of, I'm gonna lose Bella soon.
Oh,
This is the last week or two for Bella. She's in kidney failure. She's in renal. She should be on dialysis. She's on a 0 protein diet. And she's just decided.
Did she call you and want to talk about her bench press installed?
No, she was pissed off. She was pissed off she wasn't hitting PRs anymore.
Right.
And now what sucks is we found some food that she really liked, and because of the damn supply chain issues, can't get the food anymore.
Right.
So I had to get a different food, and she's like, not eating this. She won't eat it. Well, like the food that she likes, it doesn't have. So she's gonna waste away. We're just gonna take her. So it's frustrating, but yeah, it's your chickens are outstanding.
Thank you.
We won't. Yeah, I don't plan on doing anything with Bella. We'll probably just bury her in the backyard.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how bad it gets.
Bury her in the backyard. So,
like kimchi, then you'll dig her up.
Oh man, I had Korean neighbors growing up, and they'd bury kimchi in their backyard. You could smell it, and I did not want it back then. Now, I'll eat it all day. That fermented cabbage is delicious.
Burying them quail eggs.
Now I've never had those. But have you had them?
Yeah.
I bet they're wild. They're real intense.
It tastes like mushrooms.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Because they take on that earthy, weird.
Yeah, I think they're just infested with fungus at that point, and it's just.
You guys get any morels out here or anything?
No morels this year.
Man, we got a bunch out on our land.
None this year.
Which, the problem is you go get 20 morels, you eat them all in one. Right. They cook down in some butter and salt, and you're just like, these are delicious, and they're gone. But it was good. All right. Anything else on the slowly deloading? So for our lifters, go ahead.
Well, dropping slots.
Yep.
And then my next preference would be then to drop reps from individual slots.
Yes.
But when I start doing that, their work capacity is going down.
Right.
But their work capacity is going down. That's
Sure.
what, not being an advanced lifter anymore
Well,
is
there's
like.
a psychological thing. I think what you're saying and what I see is, I don't know if the right thing to do is to try to keep the intensity the same or high, but really that's what we're doing, right? Because
I'm trying.
right? Because you're like, well, you were doing sets of 5 at this weight, and then you take them to sets of 4 at the weight, or at 2.5 pounds higher. So it still feels like the weight's going up, and they're like, okay, now sets of 3, and after a while they're like, what they used to be doing for sets of 5, now they're doing for doubles, and they don't notice it as much, but at some point the weight has to start coming off the bar
It
if they're
does.
consistently enough. So yes, I still think your best option is just taking a break, taking an appropriate break, which could be anywhere from a day or 2 to 7 days. Probably isn't more than 7 days, and that's if you're real consistent, right? So that's if you're a very consistent lifter. Most of your lifters, if you're a coach, they're going to, of this age, they're going to take breaks on their own, whether they need a break or not, because they're going to go visit the grandkids or go on the cruise or get sick or whatever, right? And that's fine. And we just start over and you run them LP as long as you can. And then they get to the next break. And so you almost never have to even deal with, like, I don't know how often I'm going to have to deal with this with Sybil. So when I say she's MED, she's not really, she's just not going to hit PRs anymore, right? And even me, I'm in the same, I never have had to get to the point where I've had to make that decision of like, should I keep going for it and go for a 7? Because life happens and I stop training for a while and then I start training and have to start over at LP and I just keep doing the thing. And so, but for the clients that are consistent, I think doing what you can, like you said, to reduce slots, reduce frequency, reduce reps while keeping the sets the same for as long as we can. And then at some point, you got to start to reduce the weight that's on the bar a little bit at a time. Although, again, as a coach, if you can, that's a great time to tell them, I should go take a vacation for a week.
Right.
And then come back. And then you just just drop them 20% and then run them back up on LP. And so that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah. And if you go listen to MED shows, I mean, we just ran it backwards, right?
That's exactly right.
But Charity's strong and not terribly old.
Right.
In terms of lifting, she's not young.
Right.
She and I are both 47 years old, and she's
been doing this
donkey strong.
Yeah.
Man, she doesn't want to squat anything more than 4s.
Right.
She really doesn't want to pull more than triples.
Right.
Presses and bench presses, okay. She can do 3s and 5s. But
Rachel's the same way. Rachel's been training really hard too lately. The same thing. I just moved her from 5s to 3s, and she's like, "Oh, this is so much better."
Yeah.
Just so much better.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah. She squats more than 4s. She's just. I say that Charity's like an old tractor. Like, she just bitches and bitches and bitches.
but
once she gets
running,
started, she's working.
Yeah, right.
It's hard to get her started.
Yeah.
But if there are 5s in her logbook for the next session, God, she got a great work ethic. I mean, they tear her up. She doesn't want to do them. So
well, and I was going to say, Rachel doesn't complain beforehand. She complains after. And she'll complain all day, like on a heavy squat and deadlift day. She'll complain for 2 days after heavy squat and deadlifts. Yeah. She'll lay on the couch. I mean, let's go down the pool. Let's go for a walk. I just can't. I'm just so beat up from the squats and deadlifts. Oh, baby, come on. Like, we go, next day, she'll get up next day. She'll get out of bed. And she'll be like, ugh, the squats and deadlifts just killed me. So she'll, a lot of that. And then she'll be okay a couple days later and get her upper body session in and go from there. But
yeah, so can that person squat 3 times a week?
No.
No, she's not just belly aching for 2 days. Like, her hips are sore.
For sure.
Like, she can't do it.
And even then, I mean, for her, Rachel's lifting 3 to 4 times a week, and we're flip-flopping her upper lower. So she's on a 4-day split, and sometimes she does those. She trains 3 times a week and sometimes 4 times a week. But on the weeks that she trains 2 lower body sessions a week, and really all the lifts at this point, it's a heavy squat and a lighter deadlift, or a heavy deadlift and a lighter squat. She can't do heavy.
No.
She can heavy squat and deadlift once a week, but then she couldn't heavy squat and deadlift another time that week.
Yeah.
And so that's, but she could 3, 4, or 5 years ago.
When we talk about rounding up on the MED thing, we talk about lengthening the training cycle.
Yeah.
Right. The training cycle is 1 day in LP,
Right.
and then maybe it's 2 or 3
Sure.
sessions and later,
week,
and then it's
2 weeks, month, so
then
on
you
and
end
so
up with
forth.
the monkey block for
Yep.
18 weeks, whatever. Guys that are post-advanced, I really don't find that making a cycle longer than 4 weeks
Right.
works at all.
Right.
I don't really have an explanation for that.
Right.
I don't understand it necessarily, but I haven't gotten a post-advanced lifter to run
A 10 week,
6,
12,
8 week, 10 week
right.
blocks of any kind, DUP,
Right.
anything long
Yep.
with any sort of success at all.
Yep.
Now, well, maybe that's not true. I had a guy that is in his late 40s, big stature, 6'4", 250, good pulling mechanics. He's like, I really want to pull 500. So we really just idled everything else back. I treated his squat strictly as a deadlift accessory. So he wasn't. I mean, he was squatting 5x5 for like 240.
Okay.
And his squats like mine. He's got great pulling mechanics. His squat mechanics
Right.
are
Just long-legged.
really rough.
Yep.
And we were able to put together a pretty long training block just for the deadlift. Like
Yep.
nothing else is like that, so he's doing all 4 big movements a week, but everything else is maybe
you
a little
really
bit
have
of
to
LP.
emphasize one to be able to deal with.
Yeah.
It's too much stress to do it.
And he
for
got his
multiple
5,
lifts.
he got it.
Yeah.
But to go to a meet and set a PR on 3 lifts
Right.
and work it and
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I think the goals have to change. I think even that's a great example. Like, for some, you said he's 45. Would you say?
I think he's 48.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a guy like that, there's still times where you can go like, hey, let's emphasize a lift,
Mhm.
or maybe a couple lifts, maybe one upper and one lower. But you can't do like you did when you were 30 and emphasize 3 lifts or 4 lifts and get stronger at all 4. And so yeah, that might also be a minimum effective dose change where you can go like, we can still chase some numbers, but you got to pick your lift.
You got to pick one.
You can't. It's
And I'll tell you what, you're not going to pick the press.
right.
You're not. The shoulder is a inadequate joint.
Yeah.
It's really not it's not
No.
vigorous. It's not.
No.
It's not hardy. It's garbage.
No, my shoulders hurt more and more the more I do this.
And they just can't. They can't
They can't
do
hold it. Yeah, it's a squat or a deadlift.
In the post advanced trainee, proximal bicep tendonitis constantly that I'm dealing with. Is you seeing that too
Constantly.
all the time? And the article you wrote for Art of Manliness about distal tendonitis. Yeah, I mean, we can kind of deal with those.
That happens with younger. You're right. It's the elbow for the younger, and it's the shoulder for the older.
Yeah, and we can kind of rehab the elbow with a little bit. You wrote that thing in Art of Manliness. You can go look that up. Proximal, I don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
I need to talk to
Deaton or somebody.
Yeah,
right,
one of those guys. It's deep in the joint. So the Voltaren gel doesn't really get where it needs to get.
Right. Yep.
And the older guy just doesn't have the range of motion to and how do you pump blood into that joint? Like the elbows
and into the tendon,
sweeping a large arc.
Range of motion.
The shoulder isn't.
Right.
I don't know.
Yep.
So I have to be really careful with their bench press and their deadlift because once that rears its head, oh my gosh, keeping that at bay is very difficult.
I wonder about a push-up for those guys.
Just a light bench press.
It's a light bench press, but I think
it's more stable because it's not got this.
Yep, you get your actual shoulder blades get to move, and you could put them even on plates, on 25-pound plates, and get a bigger range of motion. I don't know.
Let's run it.
I haven't tried it, but it'd be an interesting thing to. It's interesting that tendonitis is weird because when you first get tendonitis, you think that what you want to do is stretch the tendon, and it doesn't. It makes it worse.
Yeah, it's an inflammation.
I had this problem with my Achilles. And it wrapped all the way around my plantar fascia, and actually bought so I'm not promoting this necessarily, but I bought the Squat University guy's book, Rebuilding Milo, which is not a bad book. He's got he's a little bit kooky. You post stuff on, you seen this guy? You know what I'm talking about? But he's got kind of a progression where he does sort of isometric contractions on a tendon first, in the shortened position, right? So I was stretching my calves. God, my Achilles were hurting. I was like, I just need to stretch my calves more. Wrong. So instead, I need to do the opposite. I need to go up on it. So I would did a calf raise, and I would hold it as long as I could. And I'd walk around I got heel cups, so I'd walk around so I was in less dorsiflexion. And then eventually you start going through full range of motion, but not until you have no pain, and then you go through full range. So he's got that kind of progression for all of those tendons. So I would think even for that proximal bicep, if we could figure out a way to put it in isometric contraction at some level to hold, squeeze, hold, squeeze, hold, squeeze, hold, squeeze, and then start working through range of motion eventually, and then add weight. That's kind of what he does. Tends to work pretty well. But
the only thing
isometric contraction is hard for proximal bicep. That's the problem.
Yeah, the only thing I know to do is I think that Voltaren has gone over the counter since we last recorded.
It is. It's over the counter. I get it all the time.
Yeah, Voltaren gel, that stuff is the cat's ass.
Yeah,
man.
because it's dimethyl sulfoxide is the primary. It's a DMSO that's in it, so it's a strong NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, but it's topical.
Yeah, it's a cream. You can put it right
so
where you
don't
need
have to. It doesn't have to go through your digestive system. Doesn't tear up your stomach lining. Works really, really well.
Yeah, it's over the counter. It's inexpensive. I say it's a cream. It's not. I think it's a gel.
It's like a gel.
The post-advanced lifter probably needs to have that in stock.
Take a bath in it,
and treat it. If you got that proximal bicep tendonitis, it's not so great because that's deep in there, like we said. But even if it's not bothering you, put it on anyway.
Right.
Come on, put it on anyway. And then, not a physician, but that old tried and true, Motrin regimen. When you have a flare up, that 800 milligrams every 4 hours for 7 or 10 days. That's the thing I do for myself.
Yep.
Consult your physician.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll work on seeing if some maybe some elevated, bench press on plates, like you said, and holds at the bottom.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Holds at the
without
bottom,
resting at the chest, but just holding the position.
That might be good.
You can play with that.
But see, here's what'll happen. I'm gonna have a boomer. I'm gonna be like, hey man, let's get 245s on each side.
Go down,
and let's go deep, and then you just hold. You know what he's gonna do? He's gonna get his rings, which aren't stable.
Right.
He's going to be like, well, I thought maybe I'd try the rings because.
And what I did was I held for 10 seconds and then I did 10 push-ups.
Right. And then
I held for 10 seconds and then 10 push-ups. That's not what you said. You said 45-pound plates. Go down and just hold. Don't do a push-up. Don't do one push-up.
Put your phone with the timer on right there on the floor in front of your face.
It's like a plank, but for your chest.
I know that's going to happen.
So we joked a lot for many years about our two favorite generations, the millennials and the boomers. We still deal with them every day. And listen, I joke about this a lot. And of course, we didn't even talk about Gen Z back in the old days because they weren't old enough to make any impact whatsoever. But I love Gen X. There's so much better people.
They're like, I paid you to tell me what to do. I'm going to do what you told me to do.
And I know you paint with a wide swath. Not everybody's like that.
Sure.
I joke about we've got millennial friends who are wired like Gen Xers. And we got Gen X friends who are wired like millennials. That's how you're wired is the problem, right? But I don't know what it is about the boomers and the millennials. They're just so entitled. Rachel's standing in line at the store the other day. She waited at Lowe's outside in the Lowe's Garden Center where there's a clear line, waiting in line, and a lady got done checking out. It took a long time for the lady to check out, and Rachel started to step up, and the lady stepped right in front of her and just checked out right in front of Rachel. I was like, did you hit her? Did you say something? No, I didn't say.
Our society is full of people who depend on the courtesy and kindness of other people.
Oh, and then every once in a while they run into you or me.
Every once in a while,
and they're like, "Oh, I
haven't yelled at anybody in a while."
So I haven't yelled at anybody in a while. It's been a while, but we don't go anywhere public. That's part of the deal. I went to Walmart for the first time in 2 years.
Why? What is wrong with you?
We needed something that we needed like right then. So we get everything delivered. I never go to a grocery store. Pay people if I have to. And I think we needed paper plates or something. We were having a birthday party at the house. Out of paper plates. Kaylin was at camp or something. Normally this is a great opportunity to send the 17-year-old daughter to go, and we couldn't. And so somehow we found ourselves at. Bro, terrible place. You talk about, what was the word you used? Just the
it's a third world country.
The falling apart of, what did you call it? Just the...
I don't know, decay.
The decay.
No, listen, this is a third world country.
It was incredible.
Man, this is a third world country. I needed to go buy, I needed to fill my fuel. I needed to go fill up my fuel cans.
Right.
So I threw them in the back of the truck, and I went down here to the corner station. I filled my gasoline cans. I got the diesel cans out, took the lids all off. Dual pump.
Yeah.
No alcohol gas from my machines,
Yeah.
and then diesel right there. So I had to kill the transaction for the gasoline. Then I take my card, I swipe it again to buy diesel fuel. Go through that, put the thing in, click. Like, you know how the pump will click in your hand when the tank is full?
Yeah.
It wouldn't pump fuel. It wouldn't pump fuel. The pump wouldn't work.
Right.
You're like, oh, okay, not a big deal. Went to the other one. The card reader didn't work.
Right. I've had this.
Right. This is on a state highway. This is not a little gas station in Mayberry that nobody goes to.
Right. I had this happen not long ago.
So I
couldn't find a spot to get gas.
Forget it. There's only 2 diesel pumps.
Right.
Like, forget it. So a week later, I had to go into the little town nearby, and I'm like, well, I'll just stop by the Sinclair station over here and get this diesel fuel. I go, there's 4 diesel pumps there. I go to the first one, the screen doesn't work. I can't see.
Right.
Then I pull my truck around, got a trailer too, of course, right? And then around, and I pull in the other side, swipe the card. It says credit or debit. There's a little arrow, and you push the button next to credit, or you push the button next to debit. I push the button next to credit because it's a credit card. The button doesn't work.
It's like pushed in, doesn't.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't work.
Right.
Well, then I didn't have to pull around because there's another pump right over there. So then I walk over to the other one, and I finally pump fuel. And this is not
fifth try.
Yeah, and it's like so many things are like this. The streets are terrible, and then people are like, "Greatest nation, God, July 4th," and what is going on? What is going on?
I've noticed how many at nighttime, how many of the signs on the when you've got Texas Roadhouse or whatever,
right? The lights
are out.
I know.
On all the signs.
Dude, it's a third world country. There has been a misallocation of capital for at least 20 years, probably 70 years.
Right.
And it's coming apart.
Yeah.
That suburb that somebody lives in that's way at the end of that 6-lane highway, we don't have the money to fix that highway. When that falls apart.
Right. No access to the suburb.
It's done. We can't do it. It's and it's the boomers. They spent the inheritance.
Right. So, I was going to say, so the point of the story is don't contribute to decay. Take your weight off a little bit at a time and listen to your damn coach. Stop fighting your coach. That's the point.
Please.
Because every time that you've been told to hold that push-up position and you decide to do extra work, you're contributing to the decay of society. When he tells you to do 405 for 3 and do it for 5, you're making a little deposit into the decay. You just decayed your body right there.
Let me be generous and say that if I say a set of 3 at 405, I might not be right.
Sure.
I might not be right.
Right.
But I had a set of assumptions behind it.
Sure.
I probably have notes somewhere.
Sure.
I have a sketch of your upcoming programming.
That's right.
Probably. Like, it wasn't for nothing.
Sure.
I might be wrong, but I had reasons for doing it.
That's right.
Now, you do 5 reps.
Right. You just thrown the entire rest.
You can't recover.
No.
But I also now don't don't know how to program.
That's exactly right. That's a big problem. That's the problem.
Now I'm just out in the void.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with clients many times. If you screwed up the programming at a set of 3 at 405, you probably screwed it up by being too conservative. And you probably didn't screw it up.
Right.
But if you did, it's probably not because it was too much. It was probably because it's too little.
Yes.
But if it's too little, guess what he's going to do next week? 410 for 3 or 405 for 4.
Right. We can always go back.
At some point, it's going to get there.
Right.
And if somebody goes, well, I had it for 5 or 6, but you only programmed it for 3, so I took it for 5 or 6. Thanks, man. What am I going to do next time?
Right.
I had a plan in place.
Ed Cohn at his peak had whatever it was for 2 more sets forever, but he's running like 20-week blocks, and it's not his job to do that.
That's right
then.
He knew ahead. If you look at his, of course, again, it's one of the best lifters of all time. He had 12-week, 14-week, 16-week cycles, and he had every single weight set and rep mapped out for the entire 16 weeks, and he stuck to it perfectly.
Yeah, Marty Gallagher said perfect compliance, and that if he programmed it,
that's exactly what he did. He would never do more and never do less. Did the thing. Trust the process.
Yeah,
and that's really what this is about. Whether it's MED on the way up and you're young and you're still hitting PRs, or whether it's MED on the way down, it's about trusting the process of MED. It's about trusting this minimum effective dose, one little change at a time. if we're doing this, and here's really what it comes down to. Here's the central problem of again, we're picking on this guy. Hey, we love you. I'm thankful that you're a client at Barbell Logic. Who I don't even know who you are.
I'm talking about an amalgam of all these
there's
guys.
all these people. But the reality is what you're doing is it's instant gratification. It's not about tomorrow to these guys. It's about today. And so they're like, well, I have it today.
And ego. It's just pure ego.
That's right. It's ego. I can still do it. I wanted to see if I could still do it. But the problem is you've yourself for the next several weeks. Like so remember, we're not doing this for today. We're not doing this for today. We're doing this for next year and next decade. It's the same. Listen, it's the exact same philosophy. Why we're out here on your farm.
Okay.
You're not doing it for today.